What's going on, everybody? It's Mr. Thom here, ready for the first intermediate level Photoshop tutorial. So in this specific tutorial, we will be going over how to create fill layers, how to adjust the opacity of a layer, text, effects, and the line tool. So without further ado, let's get started. So this will be our final product. This is, of course, Han Solo from Star Wars. I hope they don't mind us using this photo specifically in the name of education. But I did find these photos using the appropriate Google searches under use with modification. So that is what I did. So this should abide by copyright laws. So here's what I need you to do to create this final poster. If you're a Star Wars nerd like me, I love this kind of stuff, all right? So I figured this would make a good example for everybody as well. Plus you get to know a little bit more about myself. So first thing I need you to do is please go on to the internet, all right, and search Han Solo. Be sure labeled for reuse with modification is opened, and you should be able to find the photo that I used. It should be the 5th option. So as we went over in our beginner Photoshop tutorial, what you'll need to do is right-click on the photo and save the image as. Now remember your organizational skills. Please be sure to save this in a place where you save most of your images for organizational purposes. So go ahead and save that. It asked if I wanted to replace just because I've already obviously downloaded these photos. So the next search that I would like you to search is for the Millennium Falcon. Okay, so if you need to pause these videos at any time because I'm going too fast, please do. That's why I make them in video format. It's a lot easier to replay myself in the video format than in real life when I have a full class of students that I have to focus on. So once you search for the Millennium Falcon, again, be sure that that search condition has been used. So activate tools and drop this down for labeled for reuse with modification. And it's a little further down the page, but you should be able to find this exact photo. So again, what you're going to do is right-click, save image as, and be sure to name it something that you will easily identify. I named this one Falcon, and I'm going to go ahead and save and replace because I already had it downloaded. All right, so first things first, before we can begin this beautiful work of art, what we must do is we must create a new work of art. This is, of course, the finished product here. So what I'm going to do for everybody is exactly what you should be doing, File, New. All right, when you set up your window, a lot of you have been presetting or saving your presets for this. Just be sure that you are setting it up for a standard paper printer piece size of paper, much like this one before you. This is known as letter size, all right? So the width should be 8.5, the height should be 11, and the resolution should be 300, and please be sure you have a transparent background. I'm going to go ahead and name this one Solo Poster Example. All right. So if you want to save this for future use, this specific format, you can actually save the preset just by hitting Save Preset and naming that specific preset. Okay. I have obviously done that in the past, so if I drop down this preset, there it is. Okay. So everything's all good to go. Let's go ahead and click OK so that we have our new artboard up and ready to go in our workspace. Okay. So first things first, we're going to do some nice photo editing. So what we'll have to do is place in the photos that we are editing. So in this case, for our work, we have the Han Solo picture and the Millennium Falcon picture. Everything else we will create from scratch. So we go into File, your drop-down menu, and please select Place. Do not hit Open. That will open a brand new document of the photo, and it will not work correctly. All right, so let me go ahead and find these specific examples that I'm saying here. So we got Han Solo, boom. Okay, cool, so there's my first photo. Let me go ahead and hit enter. And one thing that I always like to do right away whenever I place a photo is get rid of any awkward background that they have uploaded with this photo. So in this specific case, I'm gonna delete all this blue around Han here. And you've already known your 3 selection tools. So in class, if I ever say, hey, use this selection tool, I'm referring to one of the 3 tools up here. Either your shape selection tool, otherwise known as your marquee tool, your lasso tools, or your quick selection tools, all right? So the easiest one that I've found to use is your quick selection tool. Just as a quick recap, you want to make sure that your plus, your selection option is activated up there, and you should have a little plus icon inside of your little brush. So all I'm doing is click, holding, and dragging in the open space, and you can see that this tool is smart enough to actually select the same color of pixel that I wish to delete. All right, let me go ahead and get in between his legs right there, and okay, cool. So before we hit delete, you can notice that we accidentally selected his fist and his sleeve. I do not want to delete that. So this is where we switch over to the minus. Okay, so switch over to subtract from selection, and we can adjust the brush size if your brushes are too big. We can actually drop down this little menu right up top here using this arrow and adjust your brush to be a little bit smaller if your brush is too big and you'll accidentally get too much of his arm deselected. So all I'm doing is click, holding, and dragging and going over top of what I want to deselect. Alright, so let me try to get his fist as best as possible there. Cool. Now I accidentally did select a little bit of the blue, or deselect a little bit of the blue. So I'm going to switch back over to my plus. And what you'll find is, and this is why I really love the quick selection tool, you can kind of flip-flop back and forth between the plus and the minus and really get what you want to be deleted kind of refined, make it look all nice as you can. Now, before you hit delete, if you do hit delete, you'll end up with this error message. Okay, that's basically saying we placed it. It's still a smart object as shown by that little icon down there in the corner. So what we got to do is we got to rasterize that layer, okay? So once I have my mouse here, I can right-click on the layer words and select rasterize layer. Again, if I'm going too fast, please be sure to pause the video so that you can catch up. After you've rasterized that layer, you can go ahead and hit delete. And now we've gotten rid of that awkward background. Looks pretty good. All right. So to get rid of these dancing lines, if you messed up on your selection at any time or in any future project, what you can do is you can actually hit Control-D to deselect, and that will get rid of all your dancing lines. So cool, we're kind of halfway there. All right, the next image that we're gonna have to place in here is the Millennium Falcon. So I go on up to File yet again. I hit Place yet again. And this time I'm gonna select the Millennium Falcon and hit Enter to permanently place yet again. Okay, so this is kind of the usual for this program. You better get this habit down of the whole file place. What I like to do is actually rasterize it right away too, just a common habit. So that way, if we want to hit delete, we won't end up with that error message. Now, in my final example, you will see that the Millennium Falcon is behind Han in this case, okay? Han is in front. He's just a little faded. We'll get to that, all right? But what we need to do is we need to move the Millennium Falcon layer behind Han Solo. Easy enough to do. Just click and drag that layer again, reorder the layers. Now he's behind him. Sweet. All right. Now here's the issue. If I want to delete the black outline of this Millennium Falcon, Han's going to get in the way. So you can hit these little tiny eyeballs next to each layer, and that will turn on and off each layer. Cool stuff. So what I want to do is I still have my quick selection tool active. I want to be sure that I am selecting what I want to delete, so be sure to turn back on that little positive icon. And I'm going to click, hold, and drag over top of the area that I want to delete. Now it will select parts of the Millennium Falcon that we want to keep. Again, just change your brush size and switch over to your minus so that you can get somewhat of the finer details here. So slow and steady is the key whenever you are deselecting or selecting an area. All right, so you can see I'm going over the Millennium Falcon, how slow I'm going, and I've been doing this for a number of years now. So slow and steady. If you accidentally deselect an area that you do not want to deselect, so if you go a little bit too far out of the Millennium Falcon, remember you can use the little plus icon to adjust that as well. All right, so just as I did right there in between the Millennium Falcon's front part. Oh, wow. I deselected a lot. I'm going to have to reselect a lot of stuff here. All right. So I switch back over to my plus, and I'm just going to go in and out, just as I did before. Perfect. All right. So now I switch back over to my minus. Minus is keep, plus is delete. So I'm going over the Millennium Falcon with my minus, because I want to keep a lot of it. All right, there's that. Cool, now I switch back over to my plus so that I can delete the inside of it. And honestly, a lot of you will probably have a lot of trouble with this specific point. just be sure to pause the video. We're only really getting all of the bright areas, okay? And that's okay because we're going to use a fill layer later on. But let's go ahead and hit delete. And you should have the correct things deleted here. So let me go ahead and hit Control D. Remember to pause the video if you're having difficulties for this point. So first things first, let's bring Han back, all right? You can use the Move tool, the very top tool, to move anything, any picture around. So I'm going to bring these guys down just a little bit here, just like that. All right, now time for the cool stuff. This is going to be a new fill layer, all right? So normally, what I've been asking a lot of my students is to use your square tool. Just make a big square and fill every area. Okay, the issue with that would be if you're making a background, you might go over top or too large for your image area. So easy way to do this so that it's perfectly in line with all of your edges of your paper. Just head on up to the layer drop-down menu, and you can come down to New Fill Layer and select Solid Color. All right, so it's going to ask you what you want to name that layer. I'm just going to keep it as Color Fill Layer 1. All right, and now it's asking me for a color. Please select black, okay? Nice dark space color. So let's go ahead and click OK. If you ever want to go back and adjust a specific color fill or anything of the such in a layer that looks such as this, you can just double click on that little color preview square in your layers panel, but we're going to keep it black. All right, so let me bring this to the very back here. You can see we're already kind of getting our way through here. There's that little tiny line. I don't know if you can see it, but I definitely can. If you want to delete that, easy enough. All you need to do is really activate your shape selection tool, and let's just select that specific area. Figure out what layer it's in by hitting those little eyeballs again. Okay, so yeah, it's in Han's layer. So I need to have Han's layer selected to hit delete. And now it's gone. Cool. If you could even see it beforehand. And Control D to get rid of those dancing lines. So now time for the cool opacity and the little trick I'm going to show you with the eraser tool. So first and foremost, keep Han's layer activated. And I want you to activate the eraser tool. So this is right above the gradient tool, where you also can find the paint bucket. But the eraser tool just looks like a little rub eraser for a pencil. So please activate that. And then I want you to change your size or your hardness of your eraser brush right away. Please change it to hardness of 0. And you want to size this up to generally around 300 pixels. You want a pretty large brush. And here's why. Because we are actually going to make Han look like his legs somewhat fade into nothing. So whenever you have that hard line on any type of photo or anything, I like taking the eraser tool and just erasing it with that soft edge. That's why we turn the hardness down to 0. So it literally looks like his legs just fade out of the photo. It's a pretty cool effect. All right, so now that we've done that, time to show you the mystical opacity. So if we come on over here to the opacity 100%, be sure you have the Han layer selected. And this is a great way to show value. So if you remember, value is kind of the different shades or visibility or size of an object. So once we click on that little arrow right next to opacity 100%, we can bring that down and Han slowly fades away. Opacity is how solid they are, all right? So right now it's 75% solid. You can see we can see through him roughly 25% of what we could, all right? So opacity, you can play around with the opacity scale bar there for a little while. You know, maybe you'll fade them down to 50 if you want to focus a little bit more on the Millennium Falcon. That's why value is so important. Depending on whatever you have more opaque, more visible, the viewer's focus is going to go there first. All right, cool. So now you know the tricks of opacity. We have color fill, we have the Falcon. Now it's time to move on to the next thing, which is text. All right, so text is pretty sweet. Text, obviously, I'm tired of a few people using the paintbrush, but I don't blame you. That's all you knew. Okay, so now it's time to put on your big person tools. And let's go ahead and click on the big T right over here. And text actually forms its own layer. I want you to make a text box up from the top left and just about, you know, halfway down or a quarter of the way down to your bottom right. And that's how you make a text box. Now, for some reason, if you click away from your layer at any point, all right, so let's say I accidentally selected Han and I'm like, I want to get back to my text layer. Double click on the big T, and that reactivates your text box. So your letters are there. Just be sure if you're typing, all of your text is above some of your other layers. That way you can still see it. If this was below the black fill layer, I would not be able to see my text, so that's something that you might want to make sure. So again, double click on the text box if you need to reactivate it. So what I'm going to type is I am going to type, yeah, sure, why not, Han Solo. Like the name of that new cool movie that came out. All right, you can see that my text might look a little bit different than yours. That's because I'm using a specific font called Bolt. You can drop down all of the options down here, much like Microsoft Word. There's all of these fonts available to you. So, yeah, that one would look kind of silly. You want to find a font that matches whatever feeling you're going with. We'll get into that more with typography later on in the year. All right. If you want to change the color of your font, be sure that it's highlighted just like I did. So I'm click holding and dragging my mouse to highlight my words. That's how I could change my font. You can change the size. So right now I'm actually at our largest 72 here. And you adjust the color accordingly by clicking on that color box. I chose this goldish color. So pause the video now if you need to do that. And also you can use these justification options right up top here to center it. Cool. Once you're done with that, go ahead and activate your move tool. And let's try to center this a little bit. Now time for one of my favorite things as well. Effects. All right. So here comes some cool stuff at you. All right. Right down at the bottom near your layers, there's this little FX. So be sure to have your Han Solo text layer active. And I just want you to play around with a few of these. But just to start you off, I'm going to show you outer glow. So outer glow, just as it would say, makes your whatever layer you have selected, all of the objects in that layer glow outward. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click outer glow. Now some of the options here, you always want to make sure that your blend mode is normal. That way it just, when we get into more advanced blending methods, well, I'll tell you why, but be sure that it's normal. All right, cool. So you can change your color by clicking on this square of whatever you want it to glow with. I'm going to go with a nice softer gold or a darker kind of almost beige. So I click OK, and you're probably like, Mr. Thom, nothing's happening. Be sure that preview is checked, and you can adjust the spread and also the size of the glow. So watch what happens when I bring up the size. Now it's looking like my letters are glowing with the color that I've chosen. And the spread is how much area it spreads over, okay? So I like to keep my spread a little bit lower, my size a little bit higher, okay? But I just want you to make those letters glow. Be sure you have a right color. If you use the same color, obviously it's just going to look like a cloud because the other color won't pop out at you. So go ahead and click OK. And the last thing I'm going to show you before I let you go and play around with all your effects and everything is the line tool. So the line tool, now a lot of you using the brush tool earlier probably tried to make some straight lines and it didn't really work out for you. So to make perfectly straight lines, you can click and hold on the shape tool, shape building tool right down here where you found all your rectangles and your circles and everything. And there's a line option. So activate that line option, create a new layer for me by using that little sticky note down there. Cool. All right. And I want you to be sure to have a cool color selected. So again, whenever you want to adjust the color, you could probably 9 out of 10 chances find it up there for most tools. And I'm going to use some type of a nice Star Wars bright yellow here. And to adjust your line thickness, you want to change the value up here. So because I'm in inches, I did 0.014 inches. If your setting is in pixels for whatever reason, try like 5 pixels. But you can start from the bottom, click, hold, and drag, and you can create straight lines using this, all right? So you can either hold shift if you want it at a perfect angle, but I'm going to kind of freehand this, and this may take a little bit longer for all of you to do. But I'm just click, holding, and dragging, releasing whenever I want my line to end, and I'm going to try to line all of these up as such. So even though I'm going off of the page, that is okay. So I'm going to go ahead and make 4 lines here and line it up. And now time for a cool little thing that you could do here. Organization skill. All of these layers, rather than click holding and dragging and moving them all the way to the bottom, if you like the color and you're ready to keep them forever, as though it's easy to remake them if needed, you can actually hold Shift or Control and click on each one of these layers. So hold Control and click on the layers so that they're all highlighted, and then you can right click on them and select Merge Layers. And now they're all on that one single Shape 4 layer. You can bring that on down, and now it's going behind the Han Solo text, and that looks like a pretty sweet movie poster. So that might, if you're able to make this and you can figure out the tools and figure everything out, you're getting pretty good at Photoshop. Welcome to the first intermediate Photoshop tutorial yet again. That concludes the lesson for today. So just to recap, a couple of the tools that we've learned is the fill layer, the opacity, the text, effects, and line tool. If you have some spare time in the class, play around with some of these effects. Maybe you can make Han Solo glow. Maybe you can have a cool little bright shadow behind him. See what you can do. But that concludes my tutorial for today, and be sure to do the exit ticket before leaving. Thanks. Bye.